Okay, so I'm going to begin by going over the rules, laws, and regulations of football. Some of the rules, laws, and regulations. Within football, a regulation is something that would be maintained by whoever is an authority. Within football, this would obviously mean FIFA. So, for example, a regulation within football would be the size of the pitch that you play on. FIFA stipulates that a football pitch must be between 90 and 120 metres in length. If it fails to fall within these parameters, then the pitch cannot be considered as an official football pitch. Therefore, you can't hold any competitive matches on it because obviously it fails this regulation. A law is the rules of the game that the players must follow. So again, within football, an example of this could be that the only two players on the pitch that can manipulate the ball with their hands are the two goalkeepers, so one goalkeeper for each team. And even then, a further law to the same effect is that the goalkeepers can only use their hands on the ball when they're within the goalkeeper's box, so the box surrounding the goalposts. Finally, a rule is, to words of a better effect, another law that players cannot break. So, for example, a rule within football as opposed to a law, a rule being that a player's boots cannot contain metal studs. The studs must either be made of plastic or rubber. And this is obviously because metal's a lot harder, so the chances for injury if you're accidentally kicked or stamped on by someone wearing metal studs, it poses a much greater risk of injury to yourself and even to the player wearing them to a certain extent. To this rule, any player found to be wearing shoes with metal studs will be either removed from the pitch or they will not be allowed on the pitch in the first place until they can provide plastic or rubber studs for their boots or get boots with studs that are allowed. And moving on now to officials. An official within sport is, more often than not, it's a voluntary position, and this person's role is to essentially to enforce the rules, laws and regulations of that sport. So, for example, within football you have referees, linesmen, so on and so forth, and their role is to make sure that all the players adhere to the stipulations applied to them when they're playing. The responsibilities of these individuals is, again, it depends on what your specific role or job title is. You know, if you're a linesman, for example, your main responsibility is to sort of monitor play as it kind of passes off the pitch. So, where the ball, if the ball leaves the pitch, where does it happen? Who's the last player to touch the ball? You know, so on and so forth. Whereas if you're the main referee, you have a much broader area of responsibility. So this will include making sure that there's no unsafe behaviour that would put any players in danger, and then to, should it happen, to take actions to mitigate that risk. That might be sending players off, giving verbal warnings, and whichever it may be. And also, again, very broadly, to ensure that game is fair, so to make sure that fair play is always present and that no team has an unfair advantage at any point due to rules being bended or broken or anything to that effect. So some examples of officials officiating, basically. Should the ball leave the pitch, the linesman will declare that yes, the ball has left the pitch, and they will then decide who was the last player to touch the ball before it left the pitch and what team did they belong to. And once that's been decided, the possession of the ball will then swap to the other team, and they will then have the opportunity to enter the ball back into play. Another example could be if the head referee witnesses a dangerous tackle being made. So, for example, a player takes a slide tackle at someone and that person goes down and perhaps hurts themselves. That the referee may decide that that was too dangerous, that it put people at risk, and therefore he may decide to send the offending player off for being unsafe in the way that they were playing. And a final example of these being put into practice. So if you have a player other than the goalkeeper, or perhaps the goalkeeper's outside of the box, if they touch the ball with their hand or manipulate the ball in any way with their hands, and the head referee witnesses this, the game will be stopped, the referee will stop the game, and the ball will again swap possession to the other team as is stipulated by the rules and regulations of the game. Thank you very much for listening, and goodbye.